In keeping in line with the trend of 2020 being the most absurd year in American history, Donald Trump has now chimed in, calling out the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone in Seattle, demanding that Democrats take it back or he will do it. In the past, Donald Trump said he would use the military to do it. But let's take count real quick. The year started with an impeachment. Then we had a global pandemic. Then we had nationwide riotings, and now it's become an occupied zone in Seattle where police claim that far left extremists are shaking down or extorting local businesses. And now locals are complaining about the rise of a warlord, and apparently they've run out of food. Yes, I kid you not. In the span of only a few days, we have moved now from the nationwide riots to this being the big story. To make it worse, Donald Trump calls out this radical far left Democrat zone or whatever, and he immediately gets slammed by Democrats who say, go back to your bunker. You have no idea how to police this. And then in a press conference, someone asks the governor about this and he goes, huh? What are you talking about? Apparently, the governor didn't even know this was happening. So yes, far left radicals have claimed this territory they're calling an autonomous zone, yet they've run out of food. And apparently they're using armed guards to stop and frisk people at the front. Look, man, it's just pure absurdity. One of the big complaints coming out of this now is that some guy has appointed himself the new police. So immediately after they declare an autonomous zone, someone fills the power vacuum. And what does he do? The first thing, a video goes viral showing him stopping a tagger who was spray painting on a building because the building owner was being nice to them. I kid you not, they've literally just become the police defending the local businesses and property owners. Yeah, okay. None of this makes sense because apparently at the same time the cops are saying people are being extorted, but still that just sounds like government. They're demanding taxes for their services. You gotta love it. But let's read the story and see what the latest update is on what's happening in the Seattle, quote, free zone. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There's many ways you can give, but the best thing you can do is just share this video. We're just going to be talking about what's going on here, and I don't think the media is really covering it fairly. That's another thing we got to break down. When this story broke, we immediately saw favorable coverage from many media outlets, but when you compare it to past protests, of course, they're extremely biased. The New York Times is 100% favoring this protest, occupation, whatever you want to call it. And I'll tell you what, right now in the media, we are seeing, I think, in the past week, 7 high-ranking officials at major media companies ousted over claims of, suppressing diversity or something. The media is being taken over faster and faster. The culture revolution is happening right in front of our eyes. And here's what's going to happen. For all of the really horrible negative things happening in this zone, you will not hear them. Because the locals have every reason to defend this and claim it's working, even if it isn't. In fact, some people are actually saying maybe there should be police here. But as the media now tries to pass this off as something great and noble and grand, they won't tell you what's really going on. And we did see similar things with Occupy Wall Street, though this is like tenfold. Let's read the first story from the Daily Mail. They say, President Donald Trump has demanded that Seattle officials immediately regain control of a 6-block zone and police station that have been taken over by armed George Floyd protesters who are demanding the city's police department and courts be dissolved. I kid you not. Impeachment, COVID, riots, and now autonomous occupation it's not even a real autonomous zone. They don't have food. But okay, here's what Trump said. Radical left governor Jay Inslee and the mayor of Seattle are being taunted and played at a level that our great country has never seen before. Take back your city now. If you don't do it, I will. This is not a game. These ugly anarchists must be stopped. Stooped sick. That means Trump had a typo in his tweet. Immediately. Move fast, he continued. Domestic terrorists have taken over Seattle, run by radical left Democrats. Of course, law and order. It followed astonishing developments in Seattle, where protesters have established what they call the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, or CHAZ, setting up barricades and armed checkpoints and declaring that police are not allowed inside the zone. There were similarly chaotic scenes in Portland, another prolifically Democratic city, where protesters removed police fencing that was surrounding the courthouse to spray paint the walls. There were suggestions that they too were trying to build an autonomous zone, but their efforts were not as organized as those in Seattle. The Seattle zone which includes apartment buildings and businesses, also contains the Seattle Police Department's East Precinct, which cops abandoned on Monday after receiving a threat that the station would be overrun and burned down. A defaced sign outside the precinct now reads Seattle People Department. I don't know if they have the photo, but there's some really funny, there's a really, really funny photo here. This poster right here behind them, it says something like, this is now property of, the free zone or whatever. And it's funny because these people claim, not all of them, but many, they want to abolish private property. They claim they want to abolish the police and the courts. What's the first thing they do once they actually come in? Well, they declare the property as theirs. A police force forms where, quite literally, I kid you not, this group run by a dude, Raz, says, we're now the police of this area. And you can see that they're absolutely treating this. Look, armed guards are showing up to frisk people to prevent weapons from coming in. At least that's what the reports we're seeing. And they're going to local businesses demanding money to pay for their services. Congratulations. You've invented the government. So I don't know what they think they're doing. They're probably just LARPing. But here's what I love. Seattle mayor tells Trump to go back to your bunker after he criticizes her handling of the protests. So after he said, take back your city, yada, 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 the two Democrats, Inslee and Durkin, responded to the president on Wednesday, ratcheting up the Twitter spat during dual health and economic crisis and nationwide civil unrest under, you know what, man? I'm sorry, I got to stop. Doesn't it feel like nothing makes sense and everything's falling apart? How do we have right now simultaneous timelines intersecting? Hear me out. It's like you turn on the TV and you'll see someone say the dangerous pandemic is expanding. Donald Trump is not taking the pandemic seriously and is violating CDC guidelines. Dr. Anthony Fauci is apparently saying like COVID is just beginning. And then you turn on another channel. It's like thousands of protesters shoulder to shoulder marching, taking over portions of Seattle. And I'm just like, does anybody have any idea what's really happening right now? And why does Trump care about this? I guess, there's videos of them trying to expand the zone and solidify. And to be fair, when I was in Ukraine and the Euromaidan protest started, it was very much just kind of like, I don't know, when I was in Ukraine at the start of this uprising, it seemed rather boring. And it got to a point where a whole lot of nothing was happening. And the people I was there with were like, we need to leave. This is boring. Nothing's happening. And I said, no, you're nuts. We should stay. Well, they didn't listen. And we ended up leaving that, I think that night, it's over. It's just people hanging out in a park. And then a day later, they tore down the statues of Lenin or whatever, built major barricades, threw fire bombs and Molotovs at police vehicles, and then we had to rush back immediately. So I'll tell you this, man. You might look at this right now and say it's a whole lot of nothing. But there is video popping up of them pulling in more. They have barbed wire fencing they're taking to barricade the area, make it stronger. And it might expand. If they really are shaking people down, and that's the story that we see coming out, that police make allegations of intimidation, extortion inside Capitol Hill's autonomous zone, then yeah, maybe it needs to be shut down before it gets worse. If you sit back and just let this happen, maybe the local police are hoping that they just have their little dance parties and eventually get bored. I don't think so. They're putting out calls for people to go there, and they're putting out calls for this to expand. Now, I do want to cover this, but the first thing I got to do is I got to call out this Inslee dude. Take a look at this. Inslee baffles literally everyone with Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone answer. Governor Jay Inslee is being widely mocked for saying he wasn't aware of the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone in Seattle, his state's largest city. This is the biggest story in the country, receiving national attention, landing it on the Twitter trending list for over 24 hours. The Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, also known as Free Capitol Hill, we know what it is. During a Wednesday afternoon press briefing, Inslee was asked to weigh in on the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. Inslee said he had no clue what the reporter was talking about. No one could believe their ears. Quote, well, that's news to me, so I'll have to reserve any comment about that. I have not heard anything about that from any credible source. Not that you're not credible, just before I espouse an opinion, I should know of which I speak. His response earned local and national ridicule. Even President Trump is taking notice, yet the governor isn't? Look at this. Brandy Cruz says, speechless. Washington governor claims he's unaware that protesters have taken over nearly 6 city blocks in Seattle and dubbed it an autonomous zone, rendering an entire Seattle Police Department precinct useless. It's been trending nationwide on Twitter. It's been more than 24 hours. These people are insanely clueless as to what's going on. And you know what? What do you expect? The people who vote for them also don't know what's going on. Man, I talk to my friends and they're like, what happened? I'm like, you do not pay attention to the news. Look, I get it. Most people don't. But this is what we see right now. Now, I get it. The left is going to deny that the police are telling the truth. They're going to say this is a lie. No one's, being shaken down. There's no intimidation. Oh, come on, man. People with guns guarding the checkpoints. There are reports on Twitter that if you try to come in, they'll frisk you so you don't bring in weapons. They're on the lookout for white supremacists and they don't allow cops inside. There's no freedom of speech. Yeah, I guess if you turn on the media, they'll tell you otherwise because the New York Times is like free speech within the zone. No, there's a video going viral of them kicking out journalists. So please spare me. Now, I guess the big question is, will Donald Trump actually come in and crush, this zone or whatever? And I mean that figuratively, like, will he come in and clear it out? I don't think so. I'm sorry, man. I'm just going to say it. What has Trump really done as far as it goes with law enforcement? Come out and said he'd do stuff. And then what? Nothing really happened. I mean, when the police cleared out by the White House, Bill Barr is claiming that he was the one who said, clear it out or whatever. Sure, you can say that Trump is more forceful. And as, the head of the federal government, he's not necessarily going to come into state governments. But is he doing anything? Look, man, I don't think the Republicans are going to get anything done. I really, really don't. So who knows what will happen come November? Everybody's demoralized and no one really expects anything. Let's read about what the police are saying. They say it was an unusual sight. Seattle Fire Chief Harold Scogins working with people occupying streets in Seattle to close 2 large rolling metal gates that lead into the garage of the East Precinct. They basically talk about how the fire chief came in and said, we don't want anyone in the building, and they agreed and helped him. You look around and everything's peaceful, and there's no organized leadership. They say, and that lack of organized leadership is hampering efforts to bring back some normalcy to the area and have officers return to the precinct, said Assistant Police Chief Deanna Nolet. Nolet said her department and other city departments are trying to find the leaders of CHAZ to negotiate a roadmap for the area's immediate future. She said police are receiving reports of armed people manning the checkpoints, intimidating people trying to enter. While Washington is an open carry state, there is no legal right for those arms to be used to intimidate community members, Nolet said. Nolet said operating a citizen checkpoint on a public street is illegal. Well, perhaps you should realize what they've been saying to you the whole time. When you enter, it says you are now leaving the United States. They do not care for your laws and your rights. You have no constitutional guarantees, and they'll throw you out if they feel like it. We have heard anecdotally of citizens and businesses being asked to pay a fee to operate within this area. This is crime of extortion, Nolet said. Simone snickered when we told him what Nolet had said. Definitely no extortion. Definitely nothing of that, Simone said. We've invited people to come in. During our 6-hour afternoon visit, we did not see any examples of what police are talking about, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. Simone did agree with police on the lack of an organized leadership of the group. Everyone is stepping up and being a leader and taking the initiative and not being complacent and watching out for each other, says Simone. But what's happening on Capitol Hill is having an effect citywide. Right now, we're on priority calls only, which means the people citywide who need a police response are not receiving it, Nolet said. That to us is just not acceptable. The assistant chief was ushered away by her staff and did not answer questions as to why that's the case. Neither SPD or occupiers we spoke with indicated there was an end to the CHAZ soon. Now they're claiming inside, of course, no one's, being shaken down. Of course not. I'm willing to bet they are, man. The report is apparently they went into a building and demanded like $500 or whatever. Now, here's the big problem. How do we know what's really happening? Do you think the media will be honest with you about what's going on inside the zone? I will now just tell you the answer is a resounding no. The New York Times has already praised this place, saying it was liberated and now a fight for racial equality is happening. Yeah. After they purge the higher ups at many of these companies, you will only get gospel from this religious group. And I'm using that figuratively. I'm saying that they're zealous fanatics. Drew Holden tweeted, "It seems not all takeovers are created equal. Here's a thread about the ways outlets have talked about the anarchy of the Seattle Autonomous Zone versus the 2014 Bundy standoff in Oregon. The New York Times said free food, free speech, and free of police inside the Autonomous Zone, where they claim that it was liberated." Then you have this one. Bundy brothers defend armed occupation of Oregon refuge. Now, that's actually not necessarily negative. Here's CNN. Seattle police want to return to vacated precinct in what protesters call an autonomous zone. The other one, armed groups leader in federal building. We will be here as long as it takes. They're not really that bad, but you can kind of see how they increasingly become more favorable to a certain extent. A GOP state legislator helped plan an armed occupation in Oregon, investigators say, calling it domestic terrorism. I don't care that the media is biased. You can argue the president is biased. You can argue the Republicans are biased and the Democrats are biased. What I'm concerned about is the media that's supposed to be telling us what's going on is presenting us a double standard. If the politicians themselves are biased, okay, fine. But if the media always skews things, they're acting in tandem with politicians. So yes, the media is biased, and this is what you'll end up seeing. Now, I guess as long as you understand their bias, you can navigate this effectively. But imagine if you're someone who just uncritically reads only the New York Times. You have no idea what's going on in the world, and you are probably extremely ignorant as to what is going to happen, like what is happening and what is going to happen. But here we go. Who is Raz Simone? Well, he's the one who says, no, there's nothing going on. But apparently, he's a dictator. In this tweet, someone says, Seattle Autonomous Zone now has a warlord. It's been 2 days. Who is Raz Simone? And who is Raz Simone, and who is he and his crew accountable to? Anyone? Are they de facto authority here now? If so, does that basically make them warlords? Raz's crew is self-appointed, heavily armed, has indicated their intention to police the area, and has engaged in the use of force. I'm unaware of any rival street force of their stature expressing the desire to hold authority in the area. The power vacuum has apparently been filled. I'm guessing he made himself in control since he has the guns. I only knew him from 3 years ago when he gave all my staff his mixtape when he came into our work. Well, there you go. There's a bunch of other posts here, but apparently they're saying that he assaulted a man. Some people are saying that he threatened to murder the man. He broke his glasses. He broke his phone. They say a man was tagging over someone else's art. Raz and group approached and separated him from the crowd, chasing him for 2 blocks. He begins to film them with his phone. They take it from him. He tries to get it back and they attack him, kicking him in the head and breaking his glasses. At one point, Raz threatens to shoot the man. They then begin to gaslight him that this was all his fault. Audio only for most of the end because the woman in Raz's crew filming puts her phone in her pocket. Well, congratulations. You have now created a communist nightmare. Someone has just appointed themselves the police of the area. Here's another one. Really seems like this guy is going to ruin it for everyone. They say, yeah, Raz has got to step down for the community. If he doesn't understand how problematic he is for this movement, then he doesn't care about the movement. This is ridiculous. Both parties are foaming at the mouth and happy, waiting for the media to report Free Cap Hill as a failure. You betcha. Because it is. You're LARPing. Look at this. Someone said, granted, I'm not in the zone, but from everything I've seen and heard about the guy, it looks like he's taking advantage of the situation or just LARPing. Live action role play. You know what? All of these people are morons. Every single one of them. They all accuse each other of LARPing. It's because you're all LARPing. There is no autonomous zone. You're dependent upon the pizza restaurant next door and the little old liberal women who brought in a crate full of ice cream for everybody. You have no food. You have no farms. You have no control. You have no funds. And you can't even properly police your own area. Nothing about this is autonomous. It's a bunch of kids just blocking off a street and dancing in the street and watching documentaries. Congratulations. You live in a bubble and you don't realize just how good you have it. Now, in response to these claims, the Autonomous Zone leader denies acting like a warlord in No Cop Co-op. From Fox News, a group of protesters who have taken over downtown Seattle. Okay, I'm going to skip that. One man, a rapper named Raz Simone, appears to have tried to position himself as the leader of the No Cop Co-op, where hundreds have been encouraged to remain camped out to occupy the now graffiti-ridden zone in Seattle's Capital District that includes a shuttered police precinct. Simone on Tuesday denied accusations. He had declared himself the warlord of the CHAZ, which has wooden barricades and armed checkpoints meant to keep out uniformed police officers. And a sign hung above the precinct reads, "This space is now property of the Seattle people." It always was, you morons. Here's what Raz said. Trump tweeted, "Domestic terrorists have taken over Seattle, run by radical left Democrats, of course. Law and order." And what did Raz say? "The president really put a hit on my head. I'm not a terrorist warlord. Quit spreading that false narrative. The world has never been ready for a strong black man. We have been peaceful and nothing else. If I die, don't let it be in vain." LARPing. Please, calm down, bro. You're in Seattle, okay? A little old lady recently came in with a crate full of ice creams, and they were handing them out. If anything, you've got a farmer's market on your hand. No one's gonna come and kill you, bro. And the funny thing about this is Trump didn't say Raz. He said domestic terrorists have taken over. Raz then responded as though Trump was talking directly about him. I think it's fair to say y'all got a warlord who thinks he's the leader of your autonomous zone. The funny thing about it is, I was talking about this the other day, the tagger, the conflict that happened, the dude's spray painting the walls, and CHAZ and his crew come up, and there's a video of it, and he's like, yo, stop doing this. The business owner is being nice to us. We got to keep things safe and peaceful. And the dude's like, no, I can do what I want. Then someone in the crew says, we're the police now, and they shut him down. Raz apparently grabs the guy and walks him away. But just think about how funny that is. The building owner has asked them to protect his establishment. And so the newly appointed warlord of this space walks up and says, we're going to protect the property owners here. Isn't it hilarious? They've replaced the police with their own police. They've got armed guards standing at the checkpoints. They've quite literally they've moved through a revolution so quickly. I'm actually impressed. They have armed police. They've put up walls to keep undesirables out of their territory. Isn't it funny? They've also run out of food. Yeah, like all the other communist utopias we've seen. The president has really put a hit on my head. Yes. Was the president really talking about you, Raz? President Trump has accused radical left Democrats in charge of Seattle and the state of allowing ugly anarchists to disrupt law and order. Hundreds stormed Seattle City Hall Tuesday night to demand Mayor Jenny Durkan defund police or step down. Okay, let's be honest here. For the most part right now, you got a whole lot of nothing. Sure, it's silly to see this guy Raz acting like a warlord, but come on, man. It's the internal politics of a tiny pocket of a couple hundred activists who are playing a game of cops and robbers, revolutionaries and riots with their friends, and the little old ladies are bringing them their ice cream like mom would when the kids are playing in the backyard. That's all they're really doing. Do I think we need to be talking about the internal politics of nothing? No. But to be fair, the president did tweet about it, so okay, we'll talk about it. And other than that, this really does have the potential to become something larger if we start seeing mass occupations around the country. Now, the thing you got to understand about Occupy Wall Street is that it's mostly just leftists in a camp, protesting. This is a bit different. The Occupy Wall Street stuff didn't have buildings. Some people have said just cut off the power to the buildings. I'm like, no, because there are people who live there who have nothing to do with this. But now they're being extorted by some of these activists who demand money, and they're going to do it. What are you going to do? If your building is surrounded and there's no police and someone comes in and says, pay up or else? Yup. These people have nothing else they can do because they're under the boot now of a bunch of lunatics, including this warlord guy. Well, over at the Reddit for the Cap Hill Autonomous Zone, one of the top posts says, "Dear leftists, your LARPing is ruining the CHAZ." I'm not going to read this, but they basically say that this is not a revolution. It is just something cool you've done that one time, but quite literally telling them they're all LARPing. And the best thing they can hope for is that they can brag about how one time they had a party in the street and that's it. That's it. He says, "You're ruining it by trying to give it more meaning than that. Apparently the CHAZ for what it is and appreciate the CHAZ for what it is and stop humiliating yourselves by acting like you're some kind of revolutionaries. You're not. You're just having fun while it lasts. So go and have fun and don't take it too seriously." So apparently, he says, "I've been banned for this post, but I want to point out one thing from the comments. This isn't abuse. The dogs like the taffy, and that's why they ate it. It just made them useless for attacking people for about 10 minutes or so while they gnaw on it. It's just really chewy. That's all. It didn't hurt them." Oh, he's referring to someone giving taffy to dogs, I guess. Oh, and his ban was lifted. Don't criticize the zone. Yeah. Check out this last video. You can see that, according to Andy No, rioters are grabbing whatever fencing they can find around downtown Portland to build their own autonomous zone. So now it's spreading. They're trying to make autonomous zones in other places. Okay. So maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's silly. Maybe we can laugh at it. But considering the rapid cultural revolution we've seen, the banning of tons of, we've seen movies get banned now, which, they may bring back Gone with the Wind. Cards from Magic the Gathering, a card game being banned. Books being banned from Amazon. Messages popping up on Amazon and video games saying, "Have you made your pledge to diversity and inclusion? Bend the knee to our dogma." And now you're seeing in more cities, people trying to create these autonomous zones. This may spread. So don't laugh now. A lot of people are laughing at this, insulting them, saying, haha, look how dumb they are. And perhaps it will spark something larger. And it may seem like a joke now, but it may not seem like a joke later. Maybe Trump will come in and actually crush it. Maybe he won't. I gotta be honest. I don't think he's going to do anything. I do not believe Trump will do anything. And I'll leave it there. I'll be keeping up with the story to see what happens, but stick around. Next segment's coming up at 6 p.m. at youtube.com/TimCastNews, and I will see you all then.